We got breaking news out of the NFL where the Miami Dolphins have fired their head coach Mike McDaniel. That's been confirmed by our very own Jonathan Jones. McDaniel has been in charge in Miami for the past 4 seasons, but failed to make the playoffs in each of the past 2 years. The Dolphins currently have the longest postseason win drought in the NFL, dating back to 2000. With the Fins firing McDaniel, they are now with up to 8 head coaching openings across the NFL, representing a quarter of the league. The Dolphins are also in the market for a new GM after parting with Chris Greer back in October. But take a look at the numbers since he's been in charge back in 2022. He had wild card appearances in those first 2 years. 11-6 was the best season. Then 2024 missing out, and this past season 6-8 as well at the helm for the Dolphins when it comes to Mike McDaniel. All right, for more of this, I want to bring in Jonathan Jones and JJ. Obviously, this is surprising news to us. We thought he would be safe. That's no longer the case. What are you hearing about that?
So Mike McDaniel was very much in the favor of Dolphins owner Stephen Ross. And, you know, when they fired Chris Greer around Halloween, they decided to keep Mike McDaniel, even though things looked fairly dire with the Miami Dolphins. Fast forward, and the Dolphins, by the time it got to week 14, were 6-7. But then wound up losing a couple games. You know, they sat Tua Tagovailoa, eliminated from playoff contention right before that against the Pittsburgh Steelers, win a game with Quinn Ewers, and it appeared that Mike McDaniel was going to return as head coach. We were reporting that it was likely that he was going to be returning as head coach because that was the message that sources had received from the upper echelons of the Dolphins organization. And they were focused on general manager candidates that were familiar with Mike McDaniel, who could work with him in this new look. But owner Stephen Ross, this week after speaking with Mike McDaniel, and I should also note after speaking with a number, I'm sorry, I got a fire alarm here, so it'll be a little loud, and you'll probably want to cut my mic here.
All right, well, we'll let you deal with that for a second. As you mentioned, the Dolphins there now firing Mike McDaniel. You see the record there, 35-33 in 4 seasons when it comes to McDaniel at the helm, missing the postseason the past 2. Take a look at it now. When you look at the carousel course, now we are up to 8. And now you start to wonder. Remember, there was speculation of 7 have called John Harbaugh about possibly the mystery team. So you think maybe the Dolphins were one of the one. The connection with Stephen Ross, the whole Michigan, the family with Harbaugh. And maybe this opens the door. We'll see what happens. We're going to take a quick little break here in HQ on this breaking news. No Mike McDaniel, no longer there in Miami. On the other side, we'll have our Brian McFadden and Damian Harris.
Off the NFL, which represents a quarter of the league. And the word coming out from the Dolphins organization, the owner Stephen Ross saying this: after careful evaluation and extensive discussions since the season ended, I have made the decision that our organization is in need of comprehensive change. I informed Mike McDaniel this morning that he has been relieved of his duties as head coach. I love Mike and want to thank him for his hard work, commitment, and the energy he brought to our organization. Mike is an incredibly creative football mind whose passion for the game and his players was evident every day. I wish him and his family the best moving forward. We move forward with the story and bring in B-Mac and Damian Harris, who have boots on the ground in Atlanta right now. And fellas, I'll start with you, B-Mac, asking you your reaction to this news, because it seemed for a while that Mike McDaniel was going to be safe, that his job would be okay going into next season. And now, at the top of a hat, it's not.
I'm right there with you. I'm surprised, Zach. I'm surprised. And when you look at how the season ended for the Miami Dolphins, in the last 6 ball games, they were 3-3. He made the quarterback change. You know, benching Tua Tagovailoa, going to Quinn Ewers. I felt like making that change for Mike McDaniel basically symbolized that he knew his job would be safe. And this was a plan made for the future, because as fans from afar watching the Miami Dolphins, we all felt like even though Tua Tagovailoa had some struggles, he was the best quarterback they had that could give them the wins. Absolutely. In terms of the experience and also, too, just the ability to have command on the offense. But if you're Mike McDaniel at that time, if you felt like your job would be safe for 2026, no question, I can make this move, because regardless what happens when I insert Quinn Ewers, I will still be in place to be the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. And you talk about making this move. The season ended on Sunday. Today is Thursday.
Fast.
Thursday, we saw other teams make this move instantly because they already knew what they were going to do. If you're Stephen Ross, if you're the powers that be, what happened between now and Sunday that made this move become a reality?
Yeah, that's the main question, but I'm right here with all of us. I'm surprised, and when we talk about the quarterback situation, I thought that Mike McDaniel cutting the tether that he had to Tua Tagovailoa, because as you look at this team, this organization, a lot of the questions have been about the offense, particularly the quarterback. Mike McDaniel has been tied to Tua Tagovailoa, and he has been the biggest recipient of the criticism that has come to Tua, the quarterback at the time. So not only did I think that he made that move thinking he would be the head coach, but I thought that would even more so solidify his job being safe in 2026-2027 season, because now you have a fresh start. Quinn Ewers went out, and he showed if he gets some more experience, some more reps, he can build something with this offense. And I just think that with the decision being made days later, to B-Mac's point, what has changed? We don't know. I don't know if there's somebody out there that they want more, but I'll tell you this much. I don't believe the Miami Dolphins wouldn't have made this decision if they haven't done their homework and if they weren't convinced that the guy that was out there that they wanted, that they didn't have the ability to go out there and get him.
So many layers to this, and Damian, maybe I'll ask you this way, I'll frame it. What changed is John Harbaugh is now available since he was fired from the Ravens. Could that be an answer to the question of how you get from Thursday to now Sunday and go back of where we are?
Well, I mean, John Harbaugh absolutely has to be at the front of your mind. I mean, we talk about there were 7 teams that reached out to him immediately after he was fired. And if you're the Miami Dolphins, a team that has this playoff drought, that doesn't have that postseason experience, that doesn't have the fundamental core values that a team like the Baltimore Ravens is known for, that's what you want. Because Miami, they always have good players. They always have good skill players. You have somebody at the quarterback position that you go into 2026 confident with, but you need the foundational pieces. And Harbaugh is a guy that would provide that. So if I'm Stephen Ross, if I'm Miami, if I haven't spoken to John Harbaugh like we're claiming, it's time to start that communication process, because he's a guy that can come in and address the needs that the team has.
And because of that, Damian, I know we're hearing the Miami Dolphins allegedly haven't reached out to Harbaugh's camp or his people to see if there's any interest. That's what we've heard. I don't believe that. I don't believe that, Zach. You asked the question, what changed between Sunday and now? Well, there was an unexpected firing that happened to a Super Bowl head coach in John Harbaugh. And we know how coveted he is with him being available. Teams that have head coaches probably would love to have him as their head coach, right? So I really feel like I can't believe that. I think they did something. And to your point about the ties, John Harbaugh, brother is Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh went where? Michigan. We know Stephen Ross is a big-time Michigan alum. And I'm just trying to put 2 and 2 together here to make 4. Obviously, we're not making 4 right now because it's not making any sense. But I do believe they had to have done some type of homework just to see what the interest is. And if there's some interest, if they feel like they could be the one to go get John Harbaugh to be their new head coach, well, we got to cut ties with Mike McDaniel.
Got to.
Because I think any football fan would say if you had Mike McDaniel or John Harbaugh,
no brainer.
You're taking Harbaugh, no question.
I'm trying to follow all the dots that you're putting out there, B-Mac, and you look at the Dolphins, like their house is not even fully in order because they don't have a GM. They fired Chris Greer back in October, so they need to figure out who maybe will be the final decision maker to target who the GM will be. And you look at some of the names out there, 4 candidates right here. You see a long laundry list of guys, 3 people from the 49ers organization. You've got Champ Kelly, who was the interim GM right now in Miami. In your mind, when you see and you think about the importance of the GM hire before getting the head coach, how fast do they need to move in targeting someone if they want to scoop up a head coach now that they are on the landscape and the market for it?
Well, they need to move fast because there are so many jobs available.
Yes.
That's the thing. We're at 8, right?
Yes.
Is 8 the magical number right now as we see it today? So you talk about the quantity that's out there. There's a lot of openings. So if you're Miami being the most recent head coach, the most recent organization to fire your head coach, you're a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Yes.
Because some of these teams had a few days ahead of you to kind of go ahead and do their due diligence, especially if you haven't done any due diligence in trying to figure out who the potential new head coach could be and who the GM can be. So if you're Miami now, I think the most important thing would be this. How important is it to have the head coach and the GM be tied together, right? Do you want to have some sense of familiarity in terms of both individuals? So normally we see, Zach, the GM is hired first and then the head coach is hired. But what if you bring in a credible head coach that's already been known and has relationships in the National Football League? Then it might be the opposite way around. You bring in a credible head coach, hypothetically speaking, Coach Harbaugh. Now you trust that he has an eye for being able to put the quality pieces in place to be able to have the GM and the scouting department all hands on hand deck mentality to be able to get the best roster possible. So I think it depends on who they target as a head coach. If you have a first-year head coach, no question, you might want to have the GM be hired first and then have the GM do a